Sex, lies, and murder. The Jodi Arias trial is in black until Wednesday. That means they're not in progress until Wednesday. Sorry to the Headline News Network for that, but everyone is talking. Well, almost everyone is still asking about the past 2 weeks of Jodi on the stand. NBC's Katie Tur is covering the story. Katie, you're back in L.A. while the trial's on break. So now that we've seen Jodi on the stand for 17 days, what is the defense strategy here?
Well, all the jury knew about her was that she changed her story 3 times. First, she wasn't there the night that Travis Alexander was killed. Then she was there because they found pictures of her there on Travis Alexander's camera. She said it was masked intruders that came in, and now she's settled on self-defense. So she had to take the stand to prove that it was self-defense, to explain why she thinks it was self-defense, how he was abusing her. Much of that, she claims, was sexually. Now, her attorneys want her to seem as sympathetic as possible, to know her. She needs to convince them that she was scared for her life, that Travis Alexander really was, as she claims, a sexual deviant, and that he really was abusing her.
You initially testified that sex was a way for Travis to relieve stress, and later testified it was a way for him to relieve anger. Which is correct?
Both are correct. Anger was stressful, and he had the term de-stress, and sex was a way to de-stress. And it seemed like after he climaxed that he felt a lot more calm.
How do you know that?
Based on his demeanor and conversations we've had regarding that and requests that he's made specifically to that, of that nature, and the term de-stress.
They're back in court on Wednesday. The defense still has a lot more to do. They have to call their expert witnesses still. They really need to prove that she was scared for her life, that he was abusing her. It's going to be hard to do, I imagine, because she admits to killing him. She admits to shooting him in the face, stabbing him 27 times, and slitting his throat from ear to ear. That's hard to prove that it was self-defense, but she claims it was self-defense. The prosecution, of course, says it wasn't, that she was jealous, that he was dating other women, and that that this was premeditated murder. Of course, again, if she's convicted, she does face the death penalty. Steve?
All right, NBC's Katie Tur. We'll see you again soon. The bulk of the Jodi Arias defense is based on the claim that she was a victim of domestic violence. CDC estimates that 1.3 million American women are victims of physical assault by an intimate partner each year. While Arias never reported the supposed violence to police, she wouldn't be alone. Domestic violence is one of the most chronically underreported crimes in the country. But Arias changed her story 3 times before settling on a self-defense claim. So will the jury believe she's the victim here? I want to bring in adult and child psychiatrist Dr. Joshua Weiner. And Joshua, I guess that's an interesting question to me because we understand that a woman stepping forward to claim that she's the victim of domestic abuse isn't always going to have evidence, and a lot of times it seems like we're going to be relying on sort of, her trustworthiness here. But when you look at a case like this, I'm just looking at, she changed her story. There's the grisly nature of how she killed this guy. I guess she kept the diary. There was never any mention in the diary of this. There was never anything she told anybody. I mean, if somebody in general were to come to you and say, I'm the victim of domestic violence, what would you be looking for besides their word that you'd be able to verify it with?
Well, I'd be wanting to find out a little bit about the details. I'd want to make sure that what they're telling me really seems to make sense, that they're able to recall what had happened with some specifics. You can just tell sometimes when you're talking with somebody whether their story just doesn't really make sense or whether it does make sense. Oftentimes, some people, by the time they come to see a psychiatrist, maybe they've already had a track record of talking to a couple other people about this, and maybe they've already started the process of making notes in a notebook or taking photographs or calling the police. So you're going to want to do a little bit of background search to find out whether what they're telling you is backed up. But, quite honestly, most of the time when somebody comes in to see a psychiatrist, I have no reason but to believe them. Of course, a criminal case is very different. So here you really have to wonder whether what she's saying is the truth or whether this is just a good excuse for trying to get out of the murder charge. But when somebody's coming in to see a psychiatrist, most often if they're talking about this, they're telling the truth.
Well, and Doctor, to your point, Jodi's story, I mean, there's good reason to be skeptical of what she's saying, having changed her story a number of times, the 27 stab wounds, the slitting the throat from ear to ear, etc. But for women out there who really are victims of domestic abuse and who are watching this trial and are watching the fact that she's sort of being presumed guilty and is being ridiculed in a way, does that have a chilling effect on them, legitimate sufferers, victims, who are thinking about coming forward?
Well, I think it has the potential to do that. I think probably people are pretty realistic, though, and recognize that their situation cannot be compared to this woman. They might be victims of domestic abuse, but they haven't gone out and done the things that she's done. They haven't killed somebody. So I think that most people are going to be reasonable. They're going to understand that necessarily what she's doing isn't a representation of what they might be experiencing in their own lives. But I do think there is that fine line where people have to be cautious, because it is possible that even though she didn't tell other people, she didn't write it down in a diary, there are no pictures of this, it is still possible that what she's saying is the truth. The problem in her case is that she's just very hard to believe because of the fact that she's already admitted to lying several other times.
Doctor, when you hear about somebody committing this level of violence toward another person, an absurd number of stab wounds, shooting in the face, the neck, and a lot of violence directed toward the head area, trying to sort of mutilate or obliterate this body that they once, very recently ago, claimed to have loved or actually had loved. What does that say to you?
Well, love and hate are not that far apart in some cases, right? And so when there's a lot of love, there's a lot of passion. And if something triggers that passion to turn to intense anger, hatred, and fear, I don't think it's terribly unreasonable to assume that there would be a lot of physical damage that could be done to somebody else. I think it would be unreasonable to make any mass speculations about what it means for the fact that she did so much damage to him. Clearly, when somebody is enraged, you don't know what they're going to do. Some people are just going to shoot somebody once. Some people are going to stab them multiple times. I think that you just have to be cautious in reading too much into that. I, quite frankly, don't really know what to make of it myself.
Do you read anything into the gigantic transformation, aesthetic transformation that Jodi has undergone? She used to be this vivacious-looking blonde. Now she's wearing the glasses, she's darkened her hair. She's trying to look mousy.
Not that there's anything wrong with dark hair.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but clearly adding the glasses, the bags, she's trying to look more mousy. Yeah, you're laughing. You read something into that, don't you?
I absolutely read something into that, yes. I think it's just a defense tactic, right? I mean, you see the pictures that she posted on Facebook. You see the way she would carry herself previously. This is not the woman who's on the stand. I think she's clearly trying to look like the girl next door who's very innocent, who's very simple, and who would never really do something like this unless she were pushed to the absolute brink and fearful for her own safety. So I definitely think that was one of the first things that stood out to me. You see the pictures of her on Facebook, and then you see this woman on the stand. They look like two different people.
People more likely to convict a blonde, perhaps.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far necessarily.
See, somebody made that judgment somewhere on our team, I'll say that. Dr. Joshua Weiner, thank you. Up next, one of the lawyers tasked with arguing one of the most important civil rights Supreme Court cases of our time will join us here at the table.